Another thing that has been arising lately in the self-development world is the so-called monk mode. Now, monk mode is basically taking some kind of, it sounds like a spiritual retirement or something like that, but it's basically making a step back on life in general, on the social life in particular, and just focusing on yourself for a normally set period of time. Like, for example, if I say, okay, I'm going to retreat for 3 months, and I'm going to just focus on my health, on my body, on training, on reading, on learning a specific skill, etc. And then coming back to life, to the normal social life, being better than I was before. I don't really understand why we end up with this kind of term, because nothing has it to do with the monk life in general. Because if you are still in your in your cozy apartment with Wi-Fi and bullshit, I don't think that's a very monkish life. But aside from that, it does have certain. It's basically taking your time to improve yourself. I think that at the same time, it's a very romanticized term that it's being used too much nowadays because of certain people that just want to go out of their life and then come back after a few months being way better. But aside from that, one of the cons that I see is that, okay, you can make a step back on life, or take your time to learn something in particular. But the more that you abstract yourself from society, you are going to be able to develop personal skills and hard skills. But the social skills, the soft skills, just because you are by yourself, you will be priving yourself from those skills. And those are the ones that really matters when you live in society. So at the end of the day, is monk mode really something that you want to do to improve yourself? Or is just some kind of fancy term to saying, I want to improve myself, and then going out of life to come back feeling like that you are some kind of anime hero coming back to the city and expecting someone to recognize you and your six pack. I do have experience with monk mode. In my case, when the pandemic began, I moved from Japan, where I live right now, towards Argentina again because of different reasons. And because of the situation, I needed to go back to my family. The pandemic started, and I said, okay, I'm going to stay here because the world is going to end and I want to be with my family. And there were a few situations that made me think, okay, I do need to improve myself. I remember clearly in that moment that it wasn't because I said, oh, I want to be the best and the top 1%. In that moment, I was 25 years old, 26 years old. And I remember that I was smoking cigarettes and that my knees hurt. And I was like, fuck, I'm 26 years old, sitting in front of a PC, smoking cigarettes, and my knees hurt. I'm too young for this. And it was the moment, because of everything, like you couldn't go out of your house, etc., that I started to train. I quit smoking. And in that moment, I said, I want to become a game developer, a game engineer. I started to make lots of stuff, like creating my games, studying programming, etc., etc. It doesn't matter for this video. But that in that moment, for those years, it was like 2 years or 3 years, I started to focus on myself. And I started to train, to read, to study, entering monk mode. And because of the pandemic, the only people that I was talking to were my family. So it was kind of a not planned monk mode. And it was even, I'm a pioneer. Ha! And it was even before the term became like a thing by itself. But in my case, it wasn't because I said, oh, I'm going to be an anime character. It was because I want to do this and I need to do this. Just as a result, at least in my experience, I think that it was good in certain way, mostly because of the situation. But I can tell that, yes, it gave me good results because I found myself in way better physical shape. And I quit smoking. I had healthy habits. I learned how to train by myself. I learned how to cook by myself, a bit about nutrition, macros, etc. And it really helped me to develop healthy habits. Also, in that moment, my career was kind of exploding. So at the end of the day, everything worked out for me in the hard skills. And this is where the thing begins. I can say a lot of good things about this, but here is where the bad part begins. As I said, everything was pandemic, so the social interactions were limited for everyone. And I'm going to tell you what happens to me. Basically, in the moment that I came back to society, I was stupid. I had the social skills of a rock. I am not the most social person that you can find in the world. In Japan, I am an extrovert, but in Argentina, I'm like an introvert. And I am an introvert. But what really happens is, in the moment that you come back to life, okay, you have all your hard skill for yourself, everything that you worked for yourself. But in the moment, the life happens in society. At the end of the day, you need to go out and find a job. And even if you create your business, you need to deal with clients. You need to have your team. You need to expose yourself. Life happens in society, like it or not. And monk mode doesn't prepare you for that. Same if you want to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or you want to make a group of friends, etc. Life happens in society. Monk mode doesn't prepare you for life in society. What I'm trying to say is not that it's a bad thing to do, but I think that it's useful only for a not too long period of time. Like you want to take 3 months, 6 months, 1 year to improve your skills. I think that's amazing. If that's something that you can do, go and do it. But don't expect that society will be waiting for you, like if you are some kind of hero or someone that is prepared to fight, and they are going to receive you. And now you do have better skills, better habits, but you need to learn how to use them in society. And it doesn't matter how many books you read on communication, even if it's on monk mode or your daily life. If you don't talk with people, your social skills are not going to grow. And yes, using Reddit is not a social skill. You need to go and talk with people in person. So, at least from my point of view, as someone that experienced that without thinking about that, but also as someone that really likes to learn, to try new stuff, to involve myself in different scenarios like traveling, meeting people, public speaking, etc. I don't really recommend monk mode unless there's something that you really have a good reason to do that. Why do I say that? As I repeat 25 times until now, life happens in society. And the best that you can do is to learn to use your skills while you keep having a social life. You can make a step back and reduce the amount of social interaction that you have. But cutting it to zero is not always a good thing to do. If you want to learn something, the best that you can do is try to learn that while you keep living your normal life. Because in the moment that you do that, all the things that you're learning, you can immediately apply them on reality. Imagine that you are really a monk and you go to the mountain and you keep meditating and you reach enlightenment. It's very hard to pronounce enlightenment, okay? You reach enlightenment. Then you come back from the mountain, you came back levitating, you are bald, everything. You are the perfect monk, you are the chosen one. But in the moment that you put a foot in the city, you get distracted by the first brothel that you find and you say, oh, let's go drink something. And then you go and start having a beer and you distract yourself from everything that you created. Now you stayed up all night drinking alcohol, smoking cigars, watching women. Where are the habits that you were so proud of developing? They went away in the moment that you have your first interaction with society. And that's why I think that the best thing that you can do is learn everything that you want to learn while you live life, because that's how you can use all those resources. And there's a lot of situations, like this is something that happens to me, that even if you read that communication book that you really liked, in the moment that you try to apply that same term, that same thing, it's not going to be natural because you are not used to that. So learning while committing all the mistakes that you can, as you may know, is the most useful thing that you can do. There's a 10-day course that I attended, it's very famous, that is called Vipassana. That is basically 10 days of meditation in silence. You share the space with people, but you can't communicate with them. Not by signs, not by talking, anything. You can't communicate. And the only thing that you do during those 10 days is just meditating. You wake up at 4 a.m. and you have a lot of meditation sessions until 9 p.m. You go to bed, repeat for 10 days. What happens is, this is a small spoiler, but in the last day, you are allowed to talk with the people that you are. When you start talking with people, everyone is like, yes, this is amazing, and this and that. You start to share opinions. And after this, you need to go to another meditation session. And in the moment that you sit down to meditate, after speaking with people, I can promise to you that nothing is going to be the same because you will not be able to focus. But how? I was meditating for 9 days in a row, and now that I need to sit down and meditate after speaking for 1 hour, I can't focus. That's because the stimulus of talking with people. So one of the biggest lessons from that course that I highly recommend is these 10 days that you had learning how to meditate were just a taste of how it works. Now you're going back to reality. You will need to deal with people, with responsibilities, with noise. And that's the moment that you need to learn how to meditate. Everything that we had in silence, amazing. But that's not how life works. In life, there's noise. there's people. The same applies for monk mode. It doesn't matter if you take 3, 6 months, whatever, 1 year of your time to learn something. You need to learn how to apply that in real life. Because if there's something that you can only do by yourself, being quiet in the silence of your room, is it really making an impact? Is it really changing your life? This is a very popular saying, but does a tree that falls in the forest make noise if there's no one listening? That's monk mode for you. So going through monk mode is an amazing experience, but only if it's in a controlled environment and for specific reasons. And mostly, at least from my experience, for the hard skills or for extremely personal skills, like something that only you can control for yourself, by yourself. But life happens in society, so don't forget about that. And it has everything. The best thing that you can do is just try it. Everything that you will learn by yourself in monk mode or in the way that you want will only make sense when you apply that in the life in society. Until that, everything is silence. Or something extremely personal. That's extremely valid too. But you want to be yourself when you are by yourself and when you are not by yourself. Learning both is extremely important. So try it, but be aware of yourself. That's the real goal.